Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Big River Start 5K coach panel discussion on race day preparation. I'm Mike Flynn, Big River's program director, and I and some of our Start 5K coaches are going to be talking to you this evening and sharing some advice and tips as you prepare for your 5K goal race, the Ferguson Twilight Run, which is coming up soon. To get started, if we could have our coaches go around, introduce themselves, please state your name and the first 5K that you ever did. Christina, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm Christina, and the first 5K I ever did, it's called the Jingle Bell Run. It's a fundraiser run for arthritis that's Christmas themed. And I did not do a start program, so I did it, but it was not the best way. And definitely did not prepare in the types of ways that we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. Sometimes we learn from experience, though.
Yes.
Yep. And hopefully we'll share some tips tonight to help others avoid learning those same lessons through experience. Natalie?
My name's Natalie. Yeah, in the first 5K, I had a very similar experience to Christina, where it's just like, yeah, let's just do a 5K. And it was the Bark in the Park 5K many, many years ago.
Ron?
Yes, this is Ron Patrick. Let me see. My first 5K was a few years ago. It was probably in Arnold, in their park there. I used to do 10K, so then I moved to St. Louis area and started doing 5Ks here.
Jill?
Jill, and my first 5K, I believe, was Creve Coeur Heart to Heart back in like 2014, something like that. And being that it was my first, but also put on by my husband's work, I felt like I really had to do a good job, but ended up walking like 2 miles of it. So, hey, whatever. I got it done.
Good. Jeff?
So Jeff Bramlett here. My first one was, I don't remember the name of it. It was so long ago. It was in Oklahoma City in the late 70s. But I came back to running with Big River Start 5K in like 2015 maybe. And I think it was, the goal race was the Ago 5K. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Leah?
Hi everyone, this is Leah Koch. My first 5K was when I was in high school on the cross country team. Anyone could get on, and I prepared about as well as any 15-year-old would prepare for a sporting event. Right now I'm actually preparing much better because I'm eating a plate of tacos, so my camera will be on and off to spare you that image.
And then Chris, if you could introduce yourself and the first 5K that you ever did.
Yeah, sure. Chris Alexiou, been running for about 10 years, and 10 years ago I did my first 5K with some friends out in Chesterfield, the Pumpkin Run. Trained pretty poorly for that, but that's what got me started on long distance running.
I think that's all the coaches that we have on the call this evening. Like I said, my name's Mike, and my first 5K would have been probably sophomore year of high school running cross country, and I don't remember much at all about it. So a few things to be thinking about in terms of prepping for race day is that we don't want to do anything new on race day. So our prior runs, we should be thinking of those, especially the one that we have coming up this Saturday, kind of as a dress rehearsal for race day. So we want to be wearing shoes that are familiar to us, clothes that we've worn in training that we know are going to be comfortable, that are going to be not going to chafe or rub or do anything weird. And then ideally our nutrition is going to be familiar to us too. And that's going to be a little tricky for our race, this goal race, because it's an afternoon, late afternoon, early evening race, whereas most of our training's been done in the morning. So If you happen to do some of your weekday training runs, like our Wednesdays, those are evenings, right? So be thinking about what you've been doing throughout the day before we've run at 6 p.m. on Wednesday evenings. And that can be helpful to you as you prepare for Ferguson. If you've been doing all your training in the morning, I'd encourage you maybe try to find an evening or two between now and race day and actually do your run that day in the evening. Figure out, what are you going to eat for breakfast, lunch throughout the day, so that can be familiar to you on the day of our goal race. We just want to make sure we're not having any GI issues or overeating beforehand or undereating beforehand and not having adequate fuel or energy to work with. Same with hydration. We want to make sure that we're hydrating throughout the day, but we're doing it in a way that we're not going to have an urgent bathroom need in the middle of the race. So get there early, use the porta potties, still consume some water pre-race, but we want to make sure that we can be comfortable in all of those areas during our race experience. If we could have our panelists go around and share some things that have worked for them. I know a number of us have run the Ferguson Twilight Run previously, whether last year or in prior years. What works for you in terms of your pre-race meals or your race day meals?
Yeah, I can start. I'll let Jill speak to hydration, but of course you want to make sure you're hydrated, especially because the temperatures have been kind of warm lately. Who knows what it'll be, in a couple of weeks for race day, but that's something to definitely consider and game plan for. And then in terms of, what I normally eat, I eat the same breakfast almost every day. So like a morning, I would do that. And then because this does kind of fall at an odd time, I wouldn't want to eat like dinner yet. There's also a lot of cool restaurants in Ferguson you can go to afterwards. But eating something like peanut butter toast or, something light that doesn't bother my stomach. That's something usually I would do, pre-race. So I have some fuel and kind of just curbs that hunger since it's going to be around dinner time.
Yeah. Thank you. Who else wants to chime in on that one?
I'll go next. So like Christina said, like the same kind of thing. I pretty much eat the same thing for breakfast every single day. And honestly, whenever I do the Ferguson race, like this is my third or fourth time doing the Ferguson race, and any evening race, sometimes I will just eat breakfast again because it's what I'm used to. So I won't eat like the same breakfast, but I'll eat like a protein waffle with peanut butter and bananas on it. So it's like something with protein, something with like carbs, and that will fuel me. But I mean, you don't really need to do, at least what I found, for a 5K, you don't need to do like, let me eat like 30 pounds of pasta beforehand. You don't really have to carbo load for a 5K. But like what Mike said, if you've never gone to like a sushi restaurant before, maybe don't try sushi for the very first time for lunch. So nothing new on race day applies to food as well.
Who else?
And yeah, I guess I'll go. For me, nutrition and race day prep is a little bit different just because of how I've trained my body to work. But being that it is a night race, everything kind of gets shifted. So definitely working on a game plan like this coming week leading up to race day is very important. So you know what your cutoff time is. I always try to have a smaller meal around like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, since the race is going to start at 5:45, 6 o'clock, whatever, right around there. That way it has time to work through your system, and then cut off all hydration about an hour before the race. That way it has time to move through your body, stop at those porta potties pre-race, and then keep on moving and rehydrate after the run.
It's not really a nutrition point that I have, but it's kind of related to GI in that I get kind of nervous about it. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. I get kind of nervous about it, so I like to try to get there early, and it sort of calms my my nerves and my GI system. So I agree totally with what's been said before. You know, try to be light. At least I do work on the light end of the spectrum pre-race time, and then of course, you know, anything goes afterwards for me. Literally, at the last race I was at the finish line, they were handing out cheeseburgers. So I was, you know, I was like right in line for that. I didn't think I wanted one, but by the time I finished, I totally did. And so anything goes afterwards, but I'd like to get there early. And somebody can correct me on this, please do. But it seems like they have like a small race before the 5K, 10K, and for kids and things. And so if you get there a little bit early for Ferguson, you'll be able to like watch them and cheer them on too, which last year, let me tell you, it was my first time at Ferguson. And I had a blast doing that. So, you know, I'd encourage you to get there for that a little bit early for that reason too.
Yeah, the 5K starts at 6 p.m. There is a 1 mile fun run that's scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. And so that's definitely an option.
Yeah, thanks.
Did any other coaches want to chime in on that nutrition or hydration topic?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in a unique position today because tomorrow is BizDash, and so I'm kind of doing the nutrition thing that I would for Ferguson tonight. So dinner tonight was very typical, nothing new or interesting. It was just some pasta. Tomorrow morning for breakfast, I usually do oatmeal, so I'm just going to do that again. Lunch will probably be maybe like a little lighter than it normally is, but still very usual, you know, not trying a new restaurant for lunch or anything. And usually before the race, usually within like maybe within half an hour of the start time, I'll take a gel. So if you have experience with gels, then that would be a time to do it. If you don't have experience with gels, do not do it. Nothing new on race day. So that's kind of typically how my nutrition would go for something like this.
Yep, and pretty much the same for me as well. Yeah, what I'll do on race day for something like an evening race like this is I will have a late breakfast, early lunch, as my body's used to more running on a little lighter load as far as food goes. And then right before the race, sort of like what Chris was saying, I'll have either some sort of nutrition, typically like a honey stinger waffle or some sort of energy bar before the race. Hydration, I try and do a little bit the day of and also the day before, as that helps get it in your system and keep it in your system too. So at least for me.
Yeah, so we have a question. What are energy gels? They're small little sachets of basically fast-acting carbohydrate that you can kind of slurp down mid-run or pre-run. They're very popular in the half marathon, marathon, and longer distance events where the body is going to deplete all of its glycogen stores. That's like carbohydrates stored in your muscles, where you actually have to replenish that energy throughout the race. In a 5K, that's not something that we all have to deal with. But what Chris was referring to is that, you know, you can take that kind of quick acting carbohydrate, sort of 15, 30 minutes pre-race just to top off the gas tank in your muscles, so to speak. And then when your race starts, you'd have a full tank of muscle glycogen to work with. Those we sell them at Big River. There's a number of other places in town that sell them as well. That's just something that you would want to try that out. Some of the gels have high caffeine content, which could wreak havoc on your GI system if you're not familiar with that. And the caffeine from the gels hits some people's bodies different than, say, like coffee would. So just because it says 25 milligrams of caffeine and you're a heavy coffee drinker doesn't necessarily mean your body's going to respond to the caffeinated gel the same way it would to a caffeinated beverage. But that's something that if you want to do experiment with it, certainly feel free to swing by a Big River store, grab a couple of them, try them out before, you know, a run, just make sure that things sit well with your body. That's what's going on there with those energy gels. Let's see here. some just key points that were stressed there: familiarity, eat familiar foods, eat stuff that's familiar, practice this ahead of time, rehearse that hydration strategy ahead of time to just make sure that you're comfortable and familiar with things. And not only is that going to make it more likely that you're going to be successful, like physically in terms of minimizing GI distress, it's also going to build confidence. If you're not doing anything new on race day, you're going to feel more confident. If you're getting there early and you're parked and you're relaxed and you're not stressed out, you're going to feel more confident. If you're, hectically trying to find parking 15 minutes before the race is supposed to start, maybe you're not going to feel as confident, and that's going to be stress that's going to negatively impact your race experience. So we will share race logistics in the email next week. In the presentation later, I'll direct you to a few things on the race website. But yeah, get there early, rehearse, eat things that are familiar, follow a hydration plan that's familiar. And with hydration, it's not just race day. Think of it as kind of a week-long endeavor. So you want to be focusing on getting adequate hydration all week long. Your urine should be clear, should be, regular. You don't want to see dark yellow urine throughout the week. We'd like it to be either a light, faint yellow or on the clearer side. That's a physical sign that you're sufficiently hydrated. Another thing that's really important is sleep. Being well rested is key. And there's a few things to note here. One, rest and recovery are both really important parts of training. There's this equation: stress plus rest equals growth. And we don't want just stress, and a super fatigued body going into race day. We want a body that's been stressed, that's been embarrassed a little bit throughout training, that's had to make some adaptations and grow stronger and fitter and improve in order to keep up with the demands we've put on it. But we also want it to be able to digest the training and absorb it and be ready to go on race day. So take your rest days and be a little bit of a lazy bum this week. You may notice some of the runs on the training plan back off a little bit. We still have some longer efforts remaining, but we've also got some easier stuff on there. It's not just how hard you can train, it's also how well you can recover from that training that's going to affect things. And then sleep is very important. So try to get sleep throughout the week. The other thing on sleep I want to say is it's very common for us to be nervous the day before or the night before. That's okay. It's actually sleep like 2 nights prior to your race is more important than sleep the night before your race. And then again, being an evening race, who knows what your day is going to look like. Maybe you have the ability to take an early afternoon nap. So if you're a napper and that's something that's appealing to you, try that out. That might be helpful. If you've got a busy, chaotic day, life is life. We have to do what we have to do, make the best of that. But if you have the opportunity to have a less stressful, more relaxing day leading up to the race, that could be helpful for you. Do any of our coaches have thoughts or suggestions on some things that maybe they do to manage their schedule in their work or personal life the week leading up to an important race to set yourselves up for success?
Yeah, one mistake I've made before is walking around too much the day before. I did a race in Las Vegas, and you walk everywhere in Vegas, and I logged like 30,000 steps the day before my race, and I woke up the next day feeling sore hips, and I didn't perform very well. So when you think about what you're doing in like the 2 days or the day before your race, you don't think about walking a lot, whether maybe you went to the farmer's market with your family, or you went shopping, or you met up with a friend for a walk. Just stay off your feet the day before and be lazy, like Mike said, but remember to not walk around too much.
Who else?
Part of like being like overall like healthy runner is cross training. And so if you're doing weightlifting or other activities to help support your body, running, just make sure you're taking that into consideration the whole week, because as you know, like whenever you work out and you like go really hard, it may not be the day after even that you feel it, may be 2 days later. So just keep that into consideration if you're like planning on doing some workouts or trying something new at the gym. Just keep that into consideration of how quickly you recover, and maybe wait until after the race to start a new workout regimen.
That's definitely a really good point. Yeah, I wouldn't try a new workout midweek leading up to race week. And if you do cross training or strength training, often that is something that maybe gets taken out a couple days before the race, and that just becomes a rest day so that the body's a little bit more recovered. So yeah, definitely a good point. Thanks, Natalie. Any other thoughts on that topic from our coaches?
One of the things that I'm planning on doing for BizDash tomorrow is, since it's after, Twilight, Ferguson Twilight's going to be the same thing where it's in the evening. Luckily, it's on a Saturday, but Saturday, right? Or it's the weekend. It's
Yep.
not after a full work day is the point. And so I'm going to plan on taking a short little nap after work just to like reset my mind, get a little bit of energy back. And so if you have a busy Saturday, maybe plan a nap a little bit before the race, just so you can have that physical and mental reset.
Like Mike said, it's not just the day before, so in general, I try to like put like a do not disturb on my phone that starts at like 9 p.m. so that I can try to like settle down and not have disruptions, so that I can get into bed early. And even if you don't actually fall asleep yet, like you are resting. So maybe try to be mindful of that, especially during race week. You want to get into bed maybe a little bit early that entire week, just to kind of get that extra rest that you'll need.
Yeah. And if you do have a busy Saturday schedule, like please don't be hearing this and think like, oh no, my 5K is destroyed now. I have other plans or commitments or things that I have to do that Saturday. Just try to find that option earlier in the week of just getting marginally more sleep each night, or a little bit of rest here and there where you can. Even having an extra restful Wednesday or Thursday is still going to be better leading into Saturday than it would be if you can't get anything earlier in the week. So wherever you can find rest, ideally the closer to the race, the better. But if you can find it a few days removed, that's still probably going to be helpful for you. Going along with that, so mindset is important. Jeff kind of brought this up, getting there early, being a little bit more relaxed. We've touched on this a little bit, but just some things to be thinking about. One, you've been training for almost 3 months for this. Like you're ready, you're going to have a good race. Use that confidence and be just confident and excited and trust that training, and use that as a reminder. Hey, I am ready for this. Some of our groups have run further than a 5K in training on our Saturday runs already. Others, if you haven't, don't worry about that. The body does remarkable things on race day. When you're running on your Saturdays at the end of the week, you've done prior workouts, you've had more stressors and more stimuli in your training throughout the week. When you go into race day, you're going to be fresher and more recovered than you are on a typical Saturday run. So that's going to set you up to run a little faster or to run further than you previously have run. So have the confidence in knowing that that's going to work for you. Have the confidence in knowing that this training plan has worked for people in prior seasons. And then just, have fun with it too. So the race is designed to be a celebration of your training. This is a goal that you set for yourself at the beginning of the season. This is something that you should be proud of. Don't necessarily have just this one overarching, I have to run this certain time or I'm a failure type of goal or whatever. Those goals are worth having. But don't necessarily make that like the one and only goal. If you've never run a 5K before, I would strongly encourage you. Goal number one is I'm going to finish my 5K. And then maybe I have a time goal, or I'm not going to walk at all, or I'm only going to walk so much through the water stops or up the hills or whatever goal you might set for yourself. But make goal number one, I'm going to finish my 5K. because that's a big accomplishment and that's a big deal. If your 5K PR is, let's say, 45 minutes and your goal is to run sub 40, don't bake that in your mind in such a way that a 41:30 is a failure. Like 41:30 is still a 3.5-minute PR and something to be proud of. So, be proud of that. It's okay to maybe set that goal as I'm going to PR today. And ideally my stretch goal is I'm going to PR with this time goal. But just have kind of multiple goals or multiple levels so that you can feel positive and excited about what you accomplished at the end of the race. What other thoughts on that topic do coaches have? I know a lot of us have been running for a while and have done a lot of races.
Yeah, I love the A, B, C kind of goal, because really you can't control the weather. You can't control if you have a sick kid that's up all night, keeping you up all night the night before. So really just making sure you just have that, I'm just going to finish. It doesn't matter how I finish, I'm just going to finish. And then kind of tier that, expectation, so that you're definitely proud of yourself no matter what. This race is awesome because it is, very community based. It's not overly crowded like some races are. So I think it's really just a good positive vibe that I think that will help a lot of people as well, just as they're, in their run and stuff, just positive people, there's not like people pushing and shoving because it's too, crowded and things like that.
Yeah, it's a big block party basically, which
Yeah.
is it's a lot of fun. So I just remember no one probably forced you to sign up for this. So this is a fun thing that you signed up for. So yeah, just yeah, have your tiered goals. Don't put so much pressure on yourself for something that has become a hobby for you and hopefully will remain a hobby for you, because if you put too much pressure on yourself, that's too much. It's too much pressure for something that you're doing hopefully to enjoy.
What I'd like to do is, if I can chime in here, this is Jeff again, is I like to kind of, try to keep myself positive by trying to chunk it. So I break the, whatever race that I'm in, I break it down into, minor accomplishments or sub accomplishments, maybe a better way to put it. Like, okay, I'm gonna just do this mile, and then I'm gonna think about mile 2, or in the case of a 5K, I'm not necessarily paying that much attention to the mile markers themselves, but just that I'm not trying to look ahead. Just as if I was going to drive to LA tomorrow, I wouldn't try to think about, oh, I've got to get to LA. I would say I want to get to Kansas City first, and then I'm going to try to get to the next big stop. So, and tell myself positive things about that. I think that really, really matters. And so, it's not a TED talk, but I want to encourage you to think very positive thoughts about it and tell yourself you can do it, because frankly, I've been part of this for like 10 weeks now, and I know you can. I've been watching you, and I know you can. So, just practice that kind of mindset and some interim goals.
Yeah, definitely trying to stay present in the moment and where you're on the race course.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's a lot of fun. I think it is a civic celebration, a celebration of running. So, just have fun with it.
On that topic, a lot of people have been giving some great advice, but I don't think anybody mentioned mantras yet. So I'm the last person to be kind of a cheesy mantra type person, but it really does work, and there's research to show it works. So I just heard Mike say one of my favorite mantras, it's not supposed to be easy, right? That's what I say to myself when it's hard. It's like, oh, it's actually supposed to feel hard when you're in a race. Another good one is trust your training, which Mike also touched on. You trained well. So just say to yourself as you run, trust your training, trust your training. You can look up other ones online. I'm sure some of the coaches have favorite ones. Write it on your arm or stick it to your watch somehow. But it really does help.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I know like a mantra I really like is I'm grateful for my body because we are lucky that we're able-bodied and even be able to get out there. We don't have injuries or things like that. So just kind of appreciating your body in the moment and trusting that it'll be able to take you through to the finish line.
Mine is silly, but it makes me laugh every time. So even like so I do this during like weightlifting and stuff. So if I like PR and like go weightlift, or if I like just as I'm running, I will like pat my leg like a horse. And it's just so like that's what I've done that for years, and it works. So like I will like literally pat my leg like giddy up. So
And one
I'm
thing
gonna
I
try
like
that
to,
now.
yeah.
one thing that I like to kind
Not
of
your
add
leg, mine.
for races is everybody in the race is in the same boat that you are, and where you're thinking to yourself that you're failing because you have to walk up this hill, but everybody around you is also walking up that hill. Pick somebody around you and just start cheering them on, because cheering someone else on helps to cheer yourself on, and getting through, whatever obstacle you might be facing at that time, that camaraderie of everybody else around you doing the same thing will help everyone succeed in that. So, and also just thinking of it, the finish line is the same distance for the first place and the last place finisher of the race. It doesn't matter how quick you do it as long as you get over that finish line.
Yeah, those are all really good points. A few other things that are worth doing there that can help build confidence is just, again, familiarity. So pre-race, we are going to have a Big River gathering area that you can join us at. There's going to be two like Big River pop-up tents set up along the race course near kind of the start finish area. It should be pretty obvious where we're at. So come find us, hang out. You can talk to other participants ahead of time. Some of our coaches will be there. You can talk to them. And then we will lead you in our typical start warm-up. We'll do our warm-up exercises. We'll walk a little bit, then we'll line up in the start area. And our coaches who are going to be coaching the race will run with you. So we'll kind of break our participants up into some subgroups. And here's a group that's running roughly this goal time or this pace per mile. And this is the run walk interval that they're going to follow throughout the race and such. So we aren't necessarily going to be able to pair up a coach with every individual start participant, but we should be able to form some subgroups. And there will be a sense of community there of, hey, I'm around people who I trained with. This is helping me relax pre-race. I'm doing a familiar routine pre-race. This is helping me relax pre-race. And then when you cross the finish line, we'll have a treat for you. So come hang out at the Big River tent, see us. There will be a celebratory treat there. You can brag about your accomplishments to each other, celebrate each other's race experience, and that'll be a lot of fun. So definitely come and join us there. I'm going to screen share for a second here. So if you go to the Ferguson Twilight Run website and you click on race info, you are going to see most, but not all of the race day info. There's a few things that they still have saying TBD, such as parking information coming soon. But you can see the race day schedule that talks about when they're going to start running shuttles from a parking area to the race site. As Jeff mentioned, that 1 mile fun runs at 5 p.m. The 10K starts at 5:45. So if you see people lined up around 5:40, don't freak out. That's a different race. That's not us. You're not running late. You're still good. And then our race will start at 6 p.m. And then afterwards, there's a chance to hang out. There's a post-race concert going on in kind of the park that's right by the start finish. There's a bunch of local restaurants you can go and hang out and eat at. So check that out. There's also info on packet pickup. You can pick it up throughout the week leading up to race day. That can be a way to relieve some stress, especially if you're a person who just knows that you're inclined to end up arriving a little later than you intend and be a little bit more rushed than you'd like to be. Maybe you can go and grab your packet Wednesday through Friday and just not have to worry about it. or it's going on pretty much all day, 10 a.m. up until the start of the race, right there by the start area. So check that out, see all the details. There's also some links you can click on that, which are going to show us our race course. So we have the 5K routes. And then you can also see an elevation profile for the race. And with this, it is worth knowing that the race finishes relatively flat. So yes, there are some hills, but we ran hills in training. You're ready for hills. You're ready for this. But it ends with a downhill and some flat. So be looking forward to that. And then another thing to know there is that you can see the finish line from further away than you think you can see the finish line. So we're going to come down this hill here and we're going to turn left, and the finish line is going to look really close, but it's not. And I don't mean that in like a dreadful, oh, it's still so far away. I just mean don't start your finish line kick as soon as you can see the finish line, because it's further away than you think it is. Wait until you're closer to that before you give it all out. I'd encourage you kind of as soon as we come down that hill, start slowly, progressively picking up the pace. But don't get to all out sprint mode until it's close. And if you're running with one of our coaches, they'll give you some advice and be like, now's the time to give it everything you've got left in the tank. But yeah, it's deceptively close when you make that. It looks close when you make that turn. You've still got a bit to go. So just be ready for that psychologically as we go into the race. But that's going to be fun. That's going to be exciting. Check out the info that's on the race website throughout the week so that you can see what's going on and be prepared for it.
Mike, did it show the water stations? I couldn't tell.
I do not see them on there.
There'll be water stations. Everyone should know.
Yeah, I think the 5K has 2 water stations on it.
So I recommend that you take part in that.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at the weather forecast. If it's a warmer day or if it's a really humid day too, dumping some water over your head to kind of wet your head can help cool the body down, make you a little bit more comfortable. So grab, a second cup of water to douse over your forehead as well. So some general tips too to set us up for success. So arrive early. We've hit on that one a few times, but lay out your race clothing the day before. So if you go to packet pickup Wednesday through Friday and you have your bib, pin it onto the shirt, the tank top, whatever you're going to be wearing the day before. Lay that all out so that you know that you've got your shoes and your socks and your shorts and your bra and your top and your hat and whatever else you're bringing with you, your phone belt to hold your phone, whatever. And what we'd like to encourage all of you to do is to take a picture of that and post it in the Facebook group. We've had some fun with this in the past. Hopefully some of our coaches can do this to get the ball started and kind of set the example, but it's called like a flat lay. You sort of lay out your outfit, take some pictures, and you can, just it's an accountability. And it's also cool, like, hey, like I'm ready. This is coming later today, tomorrow, whatever that is. If you haven't picked up your bib until race day, that's cool. That's fine. I'm not planning to get mine until Saturday. I just know that I'm going to get there early, but lay everything else out, be ready to do that. We'll communicate as much info in next week's newsletter as we can about the race day details. At a minimum, we'll have the link to that site. I think hopefully they'll have the parking details and the shuttle details clarified. If not, we'll at least point you in the right direction so you know where to look throughout the week. What else would coaches like to share on that topic of being prepared for the race?
I had posted a flat me photo in the Facebook group from my race last weekend, just so people can have that as an example too.
Perfect.
Make sure your watch is charged if you use a watch, because it sneaks up, that battery sneaks up on you.
Yes, good point.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
And one you kind of touched on, but what are the typical paces that the coaches set up to run with the group, with the people that want to run with a coach? That's the first one. And then the second one is, it was mentioned that there might be a playlist, because I don't currently listen to music, but I'm looking for the motivation to keep going without hearing myself breathing. And so I heard someone maybe putting together a playlist that we can put together for ourselves. Is that happening, and will that be posted in the Facebook group?
I made a Spotify list a couple years ago. I can resurface that. But I can also like ask people for suggestions, and we can make a new one for this season as well.
Open
Great
for
idea.
anything. Yes, thank you.
And
With regard to paces,
Mhm.
my answer to that is we'll go any pace that you want to go. You know, and so I prefer to let the runner pick their pace. For me, and my experience is that because I never, you know, in my own experience, I never really planned to go out as fast as I end up doing. There's just something about the race day with all the hubbub and excitement where you look down at your watch and go, gosh, I'm going faster than I thought. And so you really, you know, it's better probably to resist that urge to go out really hard, because then you get out and say, well, I've got a ways to go yet. So I would say, you know, if you're running, say, an 11.5 mile now, plan on running something like that, maybe a little bit better, but not try to crush it and go all the way down to 10 or something like that. It's something that we'll talk about, I think, in the tent that Mike mentioned ahead of time. This is kind of like what we will be asking you. This is kind of like, what would you like to do? How fast, or would you like to run walk, or what would you like to do? And we'll work that out with you. I'm sure there'll be enough coaches to sort of lead a group discussion about that and help you along. Who can add to that? That's just my take on it.
Yeah, we can also have that discussion this Saturday. If people are going to be there, just to kind of go over different ideas and what people are looking at doing. But generally, you know, depending on your pace that we do for our Saturday long runs, you probably should only be going 30 seconds to a minute faster come race day. If you're really going to, you know, try to go all out and push through the whole thing, I would just suggest that you start, you know, at least 30 seconds slower than what you want to be for that first at least half mile, get your legs into the race, and then kind of start moving a little quicker.
Yeah. Remember that profile that Mike showed there? There's two hills. You know,
Yeah.
there's one that comes up right there at about mile, whatever it is, 2.5 or something.
And you can always like reassess during the race too. So
Yeah.
if you decided, you know, you're going whatever pace during the first half and you're like, okay, I've got some energy in the tank, like I can push harder, especially like in that first downhill. You know, you can go faster if you want to, and then especially the second downhill, that's where we're kind of ending the race. And then you can decide, like Mike said, maybe don't sprint the entire way towards the finish line if you don't overestimate, because that can really sneak up on you. But one thing that was really helpful for me as a participant when I ran the Ferguson for the very first time, I ran with Coach Shannon, and towards the end, she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to sprint, and like huffing and puffing. And she was like, okay, chase me. And so she started running a little bit faster. And she's like, I'm your rabbit, chase me. And I was like, okay. So that was very helpful at the end.
Yeah, so let's talk about strategy for actually pacing the race on this elevation profile. So if you can see these vertical lines, they're every half mile. So the first half mile is relatively flat. It's also going to be the most congested mile of the race where you're surrounded by other people. And so I'd encourage you just take that one easy, try to be relaxed. If you run it a little slower than you intended, that's okay. It's easier to make up time later in the race. If you run this too fast, though, then you're going to put yourself in a hole before you have to go uphill, and that's going to be harder to bail yourself out of. So if in doubt, err on the side of being a little conservative for that first half mile. Just try to treat it kind of as like a warm-up. Then, yeah, we go uphill for about half a mile, and it's a false hill where there's a peak, and then we go slightly down, and then there's a little bit more climbing to do. But at the end of that, you get a nice long downhill, which feels fantastic. This is a lot of fun. You're going to cruise. You're going to run this faster than you think you can. And just kind of this, if you're worried about a time goal and you feel like you've bled some time and you've gotten behind as you've gone on that uphill, try to avoid that and be like, you know what? I've now got half a mile downhill. I'm going to make up some time here. My body's going to recover. If you're huffing and puffing going up this hill too, be like, okay, well, this is kind of like, you know, one of our intervals in training. And then I get this nice long downhill to recover from that. Then we've got about half a mile that's relatively flat. And then this second hill isn't as steep or as long as that first hill was. So we'll go up that. There is a steep pitch towards the top of it. That part, like, there's no denying that the end of this second hill, but know that's coming, right? So Leah mentioned earlier, knowing that it's going to be hard, try to rehearse the race in your mind a few times and kind of visualize it. And if you know, like, hey, getting close to mile 2.5-ish is like, you know, 2 1/3 miles into the race, there is this steeper section of uphill that's kind of going to suck. Then when you're doing it, you can be like, hey, I knew this was coming. I knew this was going to be hard. I'm here. I'm going to still do this. I'm going to get over it. And once I get to the top of that, I get a nice downhill and then a nice half mile long cruise into the finish. And so when we do come down here, this is mile 2.5. This is like mile 2.6. We still have half a mile into the finish line here. So when you turn that corner and it looks like it's a 1/4 mile, no, it is 2 laps around the track. It's another half mile. So that's what I was talking about earlier with the don't ignite the engines too quick. And so, you know, you get to cruise in, it's flat. There's even a little bit of downhill partway through that. So just know that that's coming and be looking forward to that in terms of your pacing strategy. Negative splits are a positive thing. Running each mile faster than the prior mile is one way to think of it. You know, relaxed, work on that uphill. Then I get this kind of easy downhill flat. So in all reality, mile 2 might be your fastest mile because we've got this uphill then here. But, you know, make sure we've got gas in the tank still for this. And then you can really start picking up the pace and progressively getting faster and faster as we make our way towards the finish there.
And
I have
don't
another-
take the 10K turn, follow the 5K path.
Yes.
Yes. And thankfully that turns early enough in the race that hopefully all the 10K runners have gotten there with their 15-minute head start before we get there. But yeah, definitely follow the signage and make sure that you're running a 5K, not your debut 10K.
And just a quick note on that course, that second hill where it's like the steeper uphill, I ran this race, I believe, the last 10 years, and there's either generally a water station on that hill, or there is a big group of houses that all get together and they're out like cheering everybody on. So either way, going up that hill, you're going to either have a water station that you should be kind of walking through so you can get some water in your body. It's very hard to run and drink at the same time. Or you're going to have, you know, a cheer squad who's motivating you to get up that final push.
So one more question. So my goal, and I know I need A, B, and C, but I'm struggling with setting B and C, is just to run the whole thing. I don't care the time or anything. So, but I have been struggling with hills. Can someone compare these hills to what we did at JB? Because that's where I'm like, I need to get the practice on the hills, I think, from what you're all talking about here.
They're very similar hills to JB. If you're struggling on those, I mean, hills suck either way. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. You just got to keep looking to the top of that hill and know that once you get over that crest of that hill, you get a downhill. So you do get a little relief. One thing that I try to tell people as I'm pacing going up hills is switch over to twinkle toes and kind of downshift your body so you take shorter steps and kind of just have fun with it. That's when you really got to pump yourself up to just keep talking to yourself like, just, you know, one more step, and just take it easier going on the uphills, but just keep moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
And so on that continuously running topic, so one of the things about running that's great is that everybody can kind of set different goals and make the running experience what they want to make it. And so with the 5K, and you know, Big River markets this as a kind of run walk to run progression, and the goal is to get participants prepared to continuously run a 5K. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that the fastest way to cross the finish line is to continuously run the whole race. In fact, I would wager, there's no way to test this too, so I'm not really putting money on the line because you're all only going to run the race once. So this is a safe bet for me to make. But all jokes aside, most people could actually finish this race faster if they walk portions of it than if they continuously run the whole thing. So one, anyone who's setting the goal of, I don't want to walk at all, I'd strongly encourage you to give yourself permission to walk through the water stops to make sure that you get that cup and you get the water into your mouth and you get the water swallowed without gasping or burping or developing the hiccups or having it go into your lungs instead of down into your stomach.
And not slip on cups on the ground.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So the water stops, please give yourself permission to walk through the water stops, regardless of any other goal for the race, because that, you know, there's benefits to getting that water. The other part of that is too, like, if you are purely just strained and gassed and dead on those uphills, like, even if you give yourself permission to walk for like 15 seconds or 30 seconds, you're going to get a lot of recovery from that. And then you're going to run faster when you resume running than you were running before. I know so many people who have short bursts of walking in their PR, regardless of what the distance is. Yes, the people who are running the 15, 16, 18 minute, like the sub-elite times in the 5K, yeah, they're running the entire thing and they're not walking. But I know a lot of people whose 5K PR is like in the low 20s or the high teens, and there's little short breaks of walking in their race. So I also 100% understand how psychologically I'm going to continuously run this race. That is a goal. I want to do that. And if that's what's going to give you fulfillment, then please don't let me detract from that or discourage that. And feel free to leave that as your goal. And like, that's a great goal to have. I'm not trying to talk you away from that. I just want to like put the perspective out there that continuously running the whole race doesn't necessarily translate to the fastest time. And I also would hate for someone to take a short walk on a portion of the race course and come away from their 5K not feeling a sense of accomplishment with it. Like, especially that second hill, as Jill mentioned, there was a water stop there last year at the flatter section of it. If walking through that water stop transitions into a little bit of walking still as we cross that hill, but then some really aggressive running on that downhill and a strong sprint kick into the finish, you know, be really proud of that too. So again, set your goals, be proud of your goals, just put some thought into that leading up to the race. What's going to make you happy? And, maybe goal A is ideally going to do this whole thing, but here are the situations in which it's acceptable for me to walk and I'm still proud of it. And that's very different from, saying, oh, well, I'm going to run the whole race. And then you go and you end up walking, you run the first mile and you walk the last 2 miles. Yeah, that's not continuously running your 5K, but there's gray areas and all of these different strata. We're on a spectrum here. So just kind of put a little bit of thought into that. What
Where's the like button?
Sorry, Jeff.
Does Zoom have a like button?
Oh, it does, yes, but
Okay, I'm looking for the like button on that. Strongly endorse what was just said.
yeah. We've hit on all the topics that I had kind of pre-outlined for our coaches to hit on, other than a final one. So we'll all share on this last question, and then we'll leave it open for any participants to ask questions you might have. But if some of our coaches would like to share lessons that you've learned during prior 5Ks that you think might benefit our participants.
Sorry, what was it? I was looking for the like button.
Lessons you learned the hard way
okay.
in prior
I got it.
5Ks that you think might benefit our participants.
For me personally, you kind of touched on it with the little burst of running, because I've definitely just went, just exhausted myself and then had to walk the whole last mile, where if I just would have given myself little 30-minute or minute breaks earlier, I would have been able to get through it. And then don't go out too fast. That one is another really important one that I'm guilty of, and I'm sure all the coaches are. You're so excited, there's energy, everyone's really pumped to get started, but you don't want to go too fast, because then you will, run out of gas in the tank. So just make sure you're pacing yourself. And if you are running with a coach, they'll, make sure that they're kind of holding you back so that you don't get too excited and come out of the gate too fast.
Look up directions to the race beforehand, or maybe even do a test drive to the course, because I've gotten lost to the race course before for something that was a little bit further out, and then it's just an added stressor that you don't need on race day, especially around rush hour. So even though it's Saturday, but yeah, it's just another thing to check off the list. You're okay, I know exactly where I'm going. Just
I've definitely
eliminate any
done that
stressors
too.
possible. Yeah.
And in addition to that, if you feel like you want to run part of the course, you have the map, so you could easily go up to Ferguson and just run part of the course. I've done that with some other races around. And, if you're curious what those hills look like, don't leave it to be a mystery until day of. You have the opportunity to go up there, and you can even just drive it, just so you don't even have to race it. So that's one. And then another, don't start in the very back of the corral, because you will be dodging a lot of people.
Be ready to smile at the end. There'll be photographers there, official photographers, and you can they're going to be pointing their cameras at you. If be aware.
Mm-hmm.
So just have fun with it too. I mean, that's the main thing I want to stress is go out there, not as fast as you can go at first. Find that stride where you feel comfortable. Just work that stride. And, later on, if you're feeling like you can go faster, fine, do it. But just, get yourself comfortable and get through it. And once you turn that corner and start coming towards the end, know that, all the work that you've done has been borne out by this. And you're going to have some pictures taken and then a little party at the end.
And if you make some of these mistakes, especially, if you go out too fast, yeah, we warned you not to, but we're all guilty of it ourselves. Like it's super easy to do. So, if you're half a mile in and you're like, I went out too fast, it's okay. You're in good company. Many, many, many other runners have been there. It's a rite of passage. And honestly, it's something that some of us struggle with for a really, really long time and maybe never actually totally figure out. Just adapt accordingly, make the best of the rest of your race. The other thing that I'd like to say just on that walk topic, like there's survival walking and there's strategic walking. And survival walking is like, oop, I burned all the matches and I'm out of gas and I still have a mile to go. And well, oops. And now I'm just struggling to walk to finish this up. And then there's that tactical walking of, my heart rate's really high. I'm really huffing and puffing right now. I can see the top of that hill and my legs are cramping up and I need a 15-30 second walk. You do that tactical walk, you feel better, and then you can start running again. Don't be shy about those little tactical walk breaks because you are going to resume running probably at a faster pace and your overall mile split and finish time might be faster. So just be prepared to differentiate between those two. My big advice, have fun with it. As was hit on by a couple of our coaches earlier, like this is a journey. This is not, a segment of time that's less than an hour, roughly an hour on one day in our existence. This is not just the Ferguson Twilight Run. This is the last 2.5, 3 months of your life. You've built to this. Hopefully you've found a sport that you're going to enjoy in some capacity afterwards. Maybe that's more 5Ks. Maybe that's something longer. Maybe that's something shorter. Maybe that's just running for fun when you feel like it. We'll talk about that in the end of season newsletter a little bit, what some options are. But this is just a step on a journey of health and fitness and stress relief and enjoyment. And we want running to be fun. So at the end of the day, find what's going to make it fun for you. Have joy with that. Hopefully the camaraderie of training in a group this season has helped with that. The camaraderie on race day of being surrounded by fellow participants should definitely help with that. And just, thanks for training with us this season. We wish you the best on race day. We're excited for you. Our coaches are going to enjoy being there with you. And obviously, thank you to all of our coaches for the time and effort they've put in throughout the season.
And Saturday's going to be such a good dry run too. I mean, we're basically doing the distance. So I think that'll give a lot of people a confidence boost also.